it's Deborah from the attic, and today I have the latest kit from Tonic Studios. This is kit 21. I want to start with the cardstock because there's a lot of cardstock in this kit, and it ranges from pearlized and deeply embossed to glitter and buff. So there's quite a wide selection of different cardstock in this kit. There are also lots of goodies, as there always are. So this is a brush. It's quite a firm bristled brush, and obviously it's dual-ended. Always helpful to have things like that in your kit. And then there are some drops that I haven't seen before. These are called stone drops. So I will show you later on what they look like. And this colour is rusted iron. There are gilding flakes. These are really shimmery, shiny gold flakes. There is a hybrid ink pad. This is poppy red, and there is a little sample pot of embellishment mousse. Now, the one I have is blue, but on the side of the jar it says Cosmic Brown, so I'm not sure if this was supposed to be Cosmic Brown or if it's blue and it's just gone in a different pot, but we'll use this anyway. There is something new in this folder, and it's a Tonic Studio stencil. So there are some lovely hearts that look like they're on strings, and then there are these sort of more random triangles. Inside the folder are all of these dies, and I've already die cut some of these so you can see what they look like. So I've taken the two sentiments here and the two little flowers, and this is how they cut out, and this is what the little flowers look like. So this die here is how this one comes out. It's lots of circles. This is the rose die, and that's a beautiful corner die. And this die is this one here, and this has got nice symmetry to it. And then this die I didn't cut out, but I think you'll get the idea from having seen this one. There are also stamps. So this is a large flower stamp, which looks as if it matches with the rose die cut. And there is this, which has a slightly Moroccan tiled effect look to me. So we'll make some cards with this kit, and I hadn't forgotten the sticker this time. It says made for you by, and I guess you could put your name in there. Finally, in your kits you will receive these 3 rolls of washi tape in lovely blues and nice designs and patterns. I didn't use them in my card making because these arrived after the bulk of my kit was delivered, so these were sent afterwards. And I can also tell you that the embellishment mousse is an expanding mousse, and again I didn't expand it in my cards because I've only just seen the reveal. So when you're using it, you can heat that and you can expand however you've used your mousse. For my first card, I've cut down a piece of white card, and I'm going to cover the top right hand side of this with the triangular, rather distressed looking stencil. I'm going to use the mousse, and I'm going to apply it by using one end of the really useful blending tool, and I'm going to just dab it on straight through the stencil. That little splodge that I made, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to knock off that first bit of the mousse because I want to make sure I get a nice even texture, and sometimes when you apply your brush straight from the pot to your card, it can look a bit splatty. Always wash your stencils immediately after using them, and the same with the brush because they'll come out beautifully clean. Now I've got a white side folding card, and I've also cut down a piece of that gold pearlized card because I'm going to use that as a mat. Before I cover it all over though, I'm going to take advantage of making the most of the centre of it by cutting out some extra sentiments, because I'll use those when I'm making my batch of cards. And you can see how I'm going to layer this up, and I'm going to add the little sentiment onto the bottom right hand side. A good tip when you want to add glue to something that's a little bit tiny and fiddly and has got lots of little bits to it is to put the glue on your hand and then just drop the item lightly onto the glue, and it means that you'll get just enough to secure it on your card without having glue spreading out all over the place. We're on to card 2 now, and I've used that same gold pearlized card because I really like it, and I wanted to do two things here to show you that you could actually cut away a card immediately just by using the dies, but actually that's not what we're going to do. I'm going to use that bottom sentiment that I've cut out for another card, so again I'm using my cardstock and making sure I get the most out of it, but the important thing for this card is that circular die, and I've kept it in place on my mat as best I can, and now I'm going to put over it some this is like a paper tape. It's a sort of tape that you might use if you were backing a picture on a canvas. It's that sort of tape. It's got quite a low tack, but just enough to pick up the pieces of the die cut that were left on my die cutting mat after I'd run it through my Sizzix machine, and I'm going to reserve that. I'm just making sure I have all of the little pieces, so anything that was left that didn't quite attach to my low tack adhesive. I'm going to use one of the sentiments that I cut out earlier, and again I'm dropping it onto some glue on the back of my hand, and I'm going to glue this onto a piece of the blue card from the kit which I've cut down to size. Just above my sentiment you can see two pieces of blue card which have both got fishtails cut out of either side of them. I'm using those to create a banner effect, and although I cut out two, in the end I use one, and I use it on the left hand side of my sentiment, and I'll show you that when I construct the card. To try and avoid getting too much glue on your fingers, use a stamping block to push the sentiment down. I've got 4 double-sided foam pads, and I'm going to use these to add some height to my card, and there's that little fishtail that I mentioned earlier on the left hand side. So the sentiment is on 4 little pieces of foam, and the banner tail piece is just flat on the card. So this is a pearlized card that I cut originally, and I also cut a sentiment from the bottom right hand side, and that's where I've added this new sentiment because it means that I've covered up the gap that was left by the former sentiment, and I've also backed the whole onto some blue card from the kit, and it means that I get maximum use out of the cut that I made with that single die pass in my Sizzix machine. I've completed this card by adding some stone drops to the places where the circles intersect, and the stone drops are beautiful. They have a much greater texture than the crystal drops. For card 3 we're going to go back to the pieces of die cut that were on our low tack tape, and I'm going to take my Nouveau glue and I'm just going to add some glue to the reverse of all of those pieces. I'm going to turn my tape over onto a white side folding card, and I'm going to press all those pieces down and make sure that the glue holds them in place, so that then when I slowly pull back the tape everything will be left in position. And there's the reveal. Ta-da! I sped that up so you didn't have to sit through the minute that it took me to do that. Now I'm taking the same die, and this time I'm cutting it from the copper coloured card, and that would make a beautiful card just on its own right, but we're not going to use it like that. I'm going to cut away the design from the top so that I have the solid piece in the bottom, and it means that that solid piece will follow the shape of the top piece. Again, I'm going to make use of one of the sentiments I cut out from the centre of one of my earlier cards. I'm going to use a little bit of glue just to stick that onto the copper base. Now I've taken some craft foam and I've covered the reverse of the base design of my card because that will make it stand out a bit more, and I'm adding a little bit more glue, and I'm going to finish the card by gluing that down in place. And with that the card is complete. And again, to help stick it down, just to use a stamp block. For my fourth card I have a piece of the heavily textured blue card, and I've cut it down into a tag shape, and I'm going to use this zig glue. This is a two-way glue, so when it's blue it's wet and it's permanent, and when it's clear it's dry and it's temporary, and I want it somewhere in the middle. So I'm going to let it sit for about 10 minutes before I add the gilding flakes. When you're using the gilding flakes, they're beautiful things, they're great fun. Don't sneeze, don't breathe, you'll end up with them absolutely everywhere. I'm going to push those down into the impressions in that deeply embossed paper by using one end of the blending tool from the kit. Start with just a light dusting, and then if you decide that you want to add more, add more of the flakes and then apply the brush again. And keep doing that until you have the coverage that you want. I've backed this with some white card, and I've cut the card down to the same shape, and I have a white side folding card, and I've taken a piece of the gold heavily embossed paper and I've glued that onto the front of my card, and you can see how things are beginning to line up. I've got a piece of gold ribbon and I've craft foam to go top and bottom of that ribbon, and that way it will prevent the ribbon adding too much bulk from below and making the tag stand out more than it should do. I've also added a sentiment from a little stamp that I have, and I've stamped it onto white card and just glued that onto the bottom of the tag. For my final card, I've got a white side folding card, and I've cut out 3 of the rose die cut. I've cut it from the beautiful pearlized gold and 2 from plain white card, and I'm using the two-way glue to secure this down onto the white base card. I'm going to add glue to the reverse of the second piece of white die cut card, and I'm going to position that on top of the gold card, but ever so slightly off, so that what you'll see is the gold from the die below popping through. And the top piece of white card goes exactly on top of the first piece of white card, so that there's a degree of dimension there as well, and the effect is beautiful. Now you can add your sentiment across the bottom here, or you can use it as a top folding card and add a longer sentiment. I've already decided that I want to use a little short sentiment, and I'll show you the set that I used in a moment, and I've backed it on the same gold pearlized card so that it ties in with everything else on the card. The set that I used is by Mama Elephant, and it's called Birthday Messages. I'm going to say thank you very much for watching. I'm going to leave you with some close-ups of all of the cards that we've made today and a little bit of music, and until we meet again, take care.